There is a mountain in Russia called Kholat, Syakhl. In the language of the indigenous Mansi people, it translates to Dead Mountain. In January 1959, 9 experienced hikers, led by 23-year-old Igor Dyatlov, set out to conquer it. They were young, strong, and full of life. A month later, rescuers found their camp. The tent was collapsed, half buried in snow. It had been slashed open. From the inside, the hikers were scattered down the slope. Some were found barefoot, others nearly naked. Some had crushed skulls and chests. One was missing her tongue. And their clothes were radioactive. The official Soviet investigation concluded they died from an unknown compelling force. Today, we unseal the terrifying file on the Dyatlov Pass Incident. This is DarkFilesUnsealed. The group that set out that winter was not amateur. They were all Grade 2 hikers, aiming for the highest certification, Grade 3. They were students and graduates from the Ural Polytechnical Institute, engineers, physicists, people who understood logic and survival. They knew how to survive in the brutal Russian winter. On February 1st, after a day battling worsening weather, they pitched their tent on the eastern slope of Kholat, Syakhl. It was a strategic, if exposed, position. Diary entries recovered from the scene show they were in good spirits. But something happened that night. Something so sudden, so terrifying, that it caused 9 rational, experienced people to panic instantly. They didn't have time to unzip their tent door. In a desperate frenzy, they grabbed knives and cut their way out through the heavy fabric. Think about that for a moment. What could possibly make you slice open your only shelter in a blizzard? They fled into the pitch-black night, into a storm with temperatures plummeting to -30°C. They ran without their boots, without their coats, without their gear. Most were wearing only socks, or just their long underwear. No one runs into that kind of lethal cold unprepared, unless what they are running from is far more frightening than freezing to death. The footprints they left behind tell a strange and haunting story. Investigators found that the group walked, not ran, away from the tent. They descended the slope in an orderly line, side by side, for nearly a mile. There were no signs of a struggle, no evidence of another party pursuing them. It was as if they were calmly marching away from an unseen threat. Then, at the edge of a nearby forest, the group split up, and one by one, they began to die. Search parties found the first 2 bodies under a large, ancient cedar tree, a full kilometer from the camp. Yuri Krivonishenko and Yuri Doroshenko were stripped down to their underwear. Next to them were the scattered remains of a small, hastily built fire. Their hands were burned and scraped raw, and the branches of the cedar tree above them were broken up to 15 feet high. It was clear they had been frantically trying to climb the tree. Were they trying to get a better view of something approaching? Or were they trying to escape something on the ground? A short distance away, between the cedar tree and the abandoned tent, rescuers found 3 more bodies. The group's leader, Igor Dyatlov, along with Zenata Kalmogorova and Rustam Slobodin. Their positions suggested they were desperately trying to crawl back to the relative safety of the camp. They never made it. The official cause of death for all 5 was hypothermia. It was a tragic, but seemingly explainable end. But the real mystery was just beginning to unfold. It wasn't until early May, when the spring thaw melted 4 months of heavy snow, that they found the remaining 4 hikers. They were discovered 75 meters deeper into the woods, buried under more than 10 feet of snow in the bed of a ravine. And this is where the file turns from a sad tragedy into a chilling nightmare. These 4 didn't just freeze. They were violently broken. Nicholas Thibault Brignolis had suffered a catastrophic skull fracture. Lyudmila Dubanina and Semyon Zolotaryov had massive, symmetrical chest fractures, with numerous ribs crushed. The medical examiner, Dr. Boris Vozrojdeny, stated that the force required to cause such devastating injuries was equivalent to a high-speed car crash. But here is the truly baffling part. There was no external trauma, no bruises, no cuts, no soft tissue damage consistent with the fall or a physical attack. It was as if they had been crushed by an immense, invisible pressure wave, perhaps something acting from the inside out. And then there was the most gruesome detail of all, the one that has haunted investigators for decades. Lyudmila Dubinina, along with Semyon Zolotaryov, was missing her eyes, and Lyudmila's tongue, along with the floor of her mouth, had been forcibly removed, ripped out. It was not scavenged by animals. The medical report was clear: it was a violent extraction. So what could explain this bizarre and horrific scene? An avalanche seems like the most logical answer, and it's the theory the Russian government supports today. The idea is that a slab avalanche, a delayed slide of a large block of snow, fell on the tent. This would have caused initial injuries, panicked the hikers, and forced them to cut their way out. The fatal injuries of the four in the ravine could have been caused by falling into the rocky stream. It's a plausible, rational explanation, but it fails to account for the deep weirdness found in the official Soviet files. Clue number 1: radiation. When investigators tested the hikers' clothing, they found significant levels of radioactive contamination on several garments. One sweater, in particular, was highly radioactive. There were no nuclear plants or fallout zones anywhere near the area. Where did the radiation come from? Clue number 2: the fireballs. Another group of hikers, located about 30 miles south of Dyatlov's group, reported seeing strange, glowing orange spheres moving silently in the sky on the very night of the tragedy. Geologists and even military personnel in the region filed similar reports. The lead investigator of the case, Lev Ivanov, later admitted in a 1990 interview that he was pressured by high-ranking regional officials to close the case and declassify and bury all reports mentioning the flying spheres. Clue number 3: the strange tan. At the funerals, family members were horrified to see the condition of the bodies. They reported that the victim's skin had a strange, deep orange or brown color, and that their hair had turned prematurely gray. Officials dismissed this as a result of sun and wind exposure, but was it decomposition, or a sign of a chemical or radiological burn? With so many conflicting clues, the theories have become as wild as the incident itself. Let's look at the most prominent ones. Theory 1: the avalanche. As we discussed, a small, localized slab avalanche could explain the initial panic and some injuries. But it doesn't explain the radiation, the orange skin, the missing tongue, or the strange lights in the sky. Theory 2: the Yeti, or Menk, as the local Mansi people call it. This seems like pure fantasy, but a blurry photograph was found on one of the hikers' cameras. It shows a dark, hulking figure partially obscured by trees. Could the hikers have stumbled upon a creature unknown to science? While the Mansi legends speak of wild men in the mountains, most analysts agree the photo likely just shows another member of the group, out of focus and distorted by the snow. This leads us to Theory 3: secret military testing. This theory, while unsettling, seems to fit the physical evidence best. The Ural Mountains were a hotbed of Soviet military activity during the Cold War. Could the hikers have accidentally wandered into a secret weapons test? A new type of concussive weapon, like a parachute mine or a fuel air bomb, could explain the massive internal injuries with no external trauma. A rocket failure could explain the fireballs in the sky. The radioactive fuel or exotic chemical propellants could explain the contamination on the clothes and the bizarre orange tan. The government would have had every reason to cover it up, retrieving any debris, silencing witnesses, and forcing the investigation to a swift and vague conclusion. The infrasound from a low-frequency weapon could even induce feelings of intense panic and dread, explaining the irrational flight from the tent. In 2020, the Russian government officially closed the case for a second time, citing an avalanche as the definitive cause. But for those who have studied the autopsy reports, looked at the crime scene photos, and read the investigators' suppressed testimony, the official story simply does not add up. Avalanches don't selectively remove tongues and eyes. Avalanches don't leave traces of radiation. Avalanches don't turn hair gray and skin orange. And they certainly don't compel experienced investigators to lie under orders from the state. Something walked, or flew, or exploded on Dead Mountain that night. 9 people saw it. They were the sole witnesses to an event so terrifying that fleeing into a fatal blizzard seemed like the better option. Their final moments remain frozen in time, silent testament to an unspeakable horror. The file is officially closed, but the truth is still out there in the snow.